way they would change direction. They could not get together and begin circling one another. 4. There is no way to slow the particles. They are traveling at supersonic speed, and every kilometer would separate them farther from one another. 5. There is no way to change the direction of even one particle. They would keep racing on forever, never slowing, never changing direction. There is no way to get the particles to form into atoms or clusters into Gaussian clouds. Angular momentum, turning motion would be needed, and the laws of physics could not produce it. 6. How could their atomic structures originate? Atoms, even hydrogen and helium, have complex structures. There is no way that outward shooting particles continually separated farther from each other as they travel could arrange themselves into atomic structures. We will now assume that, contrary to physical laws, the particles magically did manage to move towards one another together, and the particles could slow down and change direction. The particles changed direction and formed gas clouds. The theory: gradually the outward racing particles are said to have begun circling one another, forming atoms. These atoms then changed direction further, this time towards another, and formed gas clouds, which then pushed together into stars. This aspect of the stellar evolution theory is as strange as that which preceded it. Gas molecules in outer space are widely separated by gas. We mean atoms of hydrogen or helium which are separated from one another. All gas in outer space has a density so rarefied that it is far less than the emptiness atmospheric vacuum pressure bottle in any laboratory in the world. Gas in outer space is rarer, less dense. Atoms are more separated than anything on Earth. 2. Neither hydrogen nor helium in outer space would clump together. In fact, there is no gas on Earth that clumps together either. Gas pushes apart, it does not push together. Separated atoms of hydrogen and helium would be less likely to clump together in outer space. We will now assume that the outward moving, extremely fast, ever separating atoms shot out by the Big Bang explosion could slow, change direction, and form themselves into immense clouds. Gas clouds push themselves into stars. Because gas in outer space does not clump, the gas could not build enough mutual gravity to get together. And if it cannot clump together, it cannot form itself into stars. The idea of gas pushing itself together in outer space to form stars is more scienceless fiction. Fog, whether on Earth or in space, cannot push together into balls. Once together, a star maintains its gravity quite well, but there is no way for nature to produce one. Getting it together in the first place is the problem. Gas floating in a vacuum cannot form itself into stars. Once a star exists, it will be absorbed gas into it by gravitational attraction. But before the star exists, gas will not push itself together and form a star or a planet or anything else. Since both by hydrogen and helium are gases, they are good at spreading out but not at clumping together. 2. Careful analysis has revealed that there is not enough matter in gas clouds to produce stars. There would not be enough time for the gas to reach currently known expanse of the universe so it could form itself into stars. Evolutionists tell us that the Big Bang occurred 10 billion years ago and stars were formed 5 billion years later. They only allow about 2.5 billion years for it to clump together into stars. Their dating problem has been caused by the discovery of supposedly faraway quasars, which we will discuss later, some of which are dated at 15 billion light years since they have a redshift of 400%. That would make them 15 billion years old, which is too old to accommodate the theory. It doesn't take a nuclear scientist to figure out that the math in this paragraph. Simple arithmetic will tell you there's not enough time. 4. Gas clouds in outer space expand, they do not contract. Yet they would have to contract to form anything. Any one of these points alone is enough to eliminate the stellar evolutionary theory. 5. If the Big Bang theory were true, instead of a universe of stars, there would only be an outer rim of fast-moving matter. The outward flowing matter and gas clouds would keep moving towards without ever slowing in frictional space, with no matter ahead of it to collide with. The supposed matter from initial explosion would keep moving onward, outward forever. This fact is as solid as the one mentioned earlier. 6. In order for the gas to produce stars, it would have to move in several directions. First, it would have to stop flowing outward, then it would have to begin moving in circles. Stellar origin theories generally require originating gas. Then the rotating gas would have to move closer together. But there would be nothing to induce these motions. The motions from the supposed Big Bang should just keep rushing outward forever. Linear motion would have to mysteriously change to angular momentum. A quantity of gas moving in the same direction in frictionless space is too stable to do anything but keep moving forward. Gas in outer space, which was circling a common center, would fly apart, not condense together. There is not enough mass in the universe for the various theories of origin of matter. The total mean density of matter in the universe is about 100 times less than the amount required by the Big Bang theory. The universe has a low mean density. To put it in another way, there is not enough matter in the universe. This missing mass problem is a major hurdle not only to the Big Bang enthusiast but also to the expanding universe theorist. P. V. Rizzo, Review of Mysteries of the Universe, Sky and Telescope, August 1982, page 150. Astronomers are agreed on the existence of this problem. Hoyle, for example, says that without enough mass in the universe, it would not have been possible for gas to change into stars. He writes, quote, attempts to explain both the expansion of the universe and the condensation of galaxies must be largely contradictory so long as gravitation is the only force field under consideration. For if the expansive kinetic energy of matter is adequate to give universal expansion as the gravitational field, it is adequate to prevent local condensation under gravity and vice versa. That is why essentially the formation of galaxies is passed over with little comment in most systems of cosmology. F. Hoyle, T. Gold, quoted in D.B. Larson, Universe in Motion, 1984, page 8. Number 10. Hydrogen gas in outer space does not clump together. Harwood's research disproves the possibility that hydrogen gas in the outer space can clump together. This is a major breakthrough in disproving the Big Bang and related origin of matter and stars theories. The problem is twofold. The density of matter in interstellar space is too low. There is nothing to attract the particles of matter in outer space to stick to one another. Think about it a minute. Don't those facts make sense? This point is so important, for it devastates the origin of stars theory, that Harwood's research should be mentioned in more detail. Harwood's research dealt with the mathematical likelihood that atoms could stick together and form tiny grains of several atoms by the random sticking of interstellar atoms and molecules to a single nucleus as they pass by at various speeds. Using the most favorable conditions and the maximum possible sticking ability for grains, Harwood determined that the amount of time needed for gas or other particles to clump together into a size of just 100,000th of a centimeter in radius would take about 3 billion years. Using more likely rates, 20 billion years would be required to produce one tiny grain of matter stuck together in space. As with nearly all scientists quoted in our 1326-page Evolution Disproved series, which this book is condensed from, Harwood is not a creationist. M. Harwood, Astrophysical Concepts, 1973, page 394. 11. Novoti's research findings are very important. Novotny, in a book published by Oxford University, discusses the problem of gaseous dispersion. It is a physical law that gas in a vacuum expands instead of contracts. Therefore, it cannot form itself into stars, planets, etc. That which cannot happen given any amount of time. Do you agree? If you agree, you are being scientific, for you are agreeing with scientific facts. If you disagree, you are fooling yourself. We will now assume that clouds form themselves into what evolutionists call protostars or first-generation stars. Stars exploding and supernovas producing heavy elements. The problem of the Big Bang only produced hydrogen and helium. Somehow the 90 heavier post-helium elements had to be made. The theories had to figure out a way to account for their existence. The first stars which were formed were so-called first-generation stars, also called population 3 stars. They contain only lighter elements, hydrogen and helium. Then all of these stars repeatedly exploded. Billions upon billions of stars kept exploding for billions of years. Gradually, these explosions are said to have produced all our heavier elements. This concept is as wild as those preceding it. Another imaginative necessity, like all other aspects of this theory, this one is included in order to somehow get the heavier post-helium elements into the universe. The evolutionists admit that the Big Bang would only have produced hydrogen and helium. The nuclear gaps at mass 5 and 8 make it impossible for hydrogen or helium to change itself into any of the heavier elements. This is an extremely important point and is called the helium mass 4 gap. That is, there is a gap immediately after helium 4. Therefore, exploding stars could not produce the heavier elements. Some scientists speculate that a little might be produced, but even that would not be enough to supply all the heavier elements now in our universe. Among nuclides that can actually be formed, gaps exist at mass 5 and 8. Neither hydrogen nor helium can jump the gap at mass 5. This first gap is caused by the fact that neither a portion nor a neutron, a proton nor a neutron can be attached to helium nucleus of mass 4. Because of this gap, the only element that hydrogen can normally change into is helium. Even if it spanned this gap, it would be stopped again at mass 8. Hydrogen bomb explosion produced deuterium or hydrogen-2, which in turn forms helium-4. In theory, the hydrogen bomb chain reaction of nuclear changes could continue changing into ever heavier elements until it reached uranium, but the process is stopped at the gap at mass 5. If it were not for that gap, our sun would be radiating uranium towards us. Quote, in the sequence of atomic weight numbers 5 and 8 are vacant. That is, there is no stable atom of mass or mass 8. The question then is, how can the building up of elements by neutron capture get by these gaps? The process could not go beyond helium-4, and even if it spanned this gap, it would be stopped again at mass 8. This basic objection to Gamow's theory is a great disappointment in view of the promise and philosophical attractiveness of the idea. William A. Fowler, California Institute of Technology, quoted in Creation Science, page 90. Clarification: if you will look at any standard table of elements, you will find that the atomic weight of hydrogen is 1.008. Deuterium is a form of hydrogen with a weight of 2.016. Next come helium, 4.003, followed by lithium, 6,939, beryllium, 9,000.012, boron, 10,000.811, etc. Gaps in atomic weight exist at mass 5 and 8. But cannot hydrogen explosion cross those gaps? No. Nuclear fission, a nuclear bomb or reactor splits unevenly, halves. Uranium into barium and technetium nuclear fusion, a hydrogen bomb combines doubles, or hydrogen into deuterium, helium-2, which then doubles into helium-4, and stop there. So as hydrogen explosion, even in a star, does not go across the mass of 5 gap. We will now assume that hydrogen and helium explosions could go across the gaps at mass 5 and 8. 3. There has not been enough theoretical time to produce all the needed heavier elements that now exist. We know from spectrographs that heavier elements are found all over the universe. The first stars are said to have formed about 250 million years after the initial Big Bang explosion. No one ever dates the Big Bang over 20 billion years ago, and the date has recently been lowered to 15 billion years ago.